The all-new Toyota Corolla Cross slots in between the RAV4 and the CHR in size and price and features. But how does that smaller size, along with all-wheel drive and a little bit of a lifted form factor, do on the highway? Today we're going to find out. Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor. Today we've got the real-world highway fuel economy test on the 2022 Toyota Corolla Cross. Before we get started, let's hop out, take a look at it. Not really just a lifted Corolla. I mean, I'm sure platform-wise it is, but looks are pretty different. I gotta say, it also slots in between the RAV4 and CHR in terms of appearance. I think the RAV4 looks a little better, but this looks better than the CHR. And you got your little D-pillar text there to tell you that it is a Corolla Cross. And I bet you that'll come in handy because people are going to be asking, what in the world is this? I do think Toyota has a pretty darn good formula on its hands for kind of appealing to the masses. This thing has a decent amount of usable space for maybe one or two people driving the car regularly. But I do have to say, overall, it's pretty much as inoffensive as you can get. If you do want to see more on the Corolla Cross, check the links in the description. Mr. Brower did a DM test drive, and we're going to be reviewing the sound system as well. This one has a JBL system, pretty much the same as what you get in a Corolla. Check the links in the description if you want to see those. So why do we do this test? Well, the EPA's highway fuel economy test, which gives this Corolla Cross 32 miles per gallon, that test only averages 48 miles per hour. We know there are people who take their vehicles on long road trips and would like to know what sort of numbers you can realistically expect in the real world. In order to do that, we're going to head over to the pump here, fill up, go out and do 100 miles, come back, fill up at the same pump using the same 3-click fueling method, and get a result. A few things to note for today: outside temperatures 39 degrees Fahrenheit, might warm up a little bit by the end of the test. Tire pressures have been set to their door placard 33 psi cold, and we're going to run the climate control at 73 degrees auto. Now yes, this might use the air conditioner, but that's how people travel in the real world, and without it, we would be cold. Alright, let's hop out and fill it up. 4.006 gallons going in for our first fill. Before we actually start the engine, got our GPS reset. We're going to reset our trip computer as well. And we're ready to begin. Surprisingly, no drive modes here in the Corolla Cross, but we do have an eco heat and cool mode, so we're going to use that. We're going to take it nice and easy over to the highway. It's about half a mile away. Pick up the test from there. Well, the goal of this test isn't to hypermile. We're not trying to get the best possible fuel economy, but rather a realistic number for this car. In order to do that, we're going to get up to highway speed here at a reasonable pace and set our cruise control at a GPS indicated 72 miles per hour. That should allow us to average 70 over the whole test. Hear this little 2-liter and the CVT working away, getting up this hill. Initial highway impressions are pretty decent. I like the feel of the steering. There's a little bit of play off center, but I like that it's kind of light. Road noise seems to be fairly adequate for this price point. Wind noise as well. Alright, we're going to continue on with the rest of the test out this JBL sound system, and catch up with you at the end. In the meantime, enjoy this time lapse of the entire trip. coming into the end of the highway fuel economy test here in the Corolla Cross, I think this really goes as another data point that the 2-liter from Toyota, that's just the 2-liter naturally aspirated motor, which is what we're using here, is not nearly as efficient as the 2.5-liter that you can get in the Camry and the RAV4 and a lot of other products. We're only averaging 31 miles per gallon according to the car's trip computer right now. Not fantastic for this size of vehicle, it really isn't. Think about all the other cars you can get from Toyota that get better fuel economy on the highway and give you all-wheel drive. RAV4 hybrid, RAV4 normal, I'm pretty sure, just the 2.5-liter. Camry all-wheel drive, Toyota Prius all-wheel drive. I mean, all those cars you can get from Toyota. They're going to get you better fuel economy pretty much across the board. You might not get quite as good city mileage with the Camry all-wheel drive and maybe the RAV4 all-wheel drive, but only getting 31 in a car this size, that's not fantastic. The other thing that's really weird about this is the odometer is very far off. It says 96 miles since we reset it, whereas the GPS says 104. That means for every 100 miles you go in real life, the car only says you're going 95, so extrapolate that a bit. After 1,000 miles, the car would have said you've only done 950, and over 10,000 miles, the car would say you've only done 9,500, so an extra 500 miles off the odometer after 10,000 miles. I don't know, it's weird that it would be that dramatically off. Kind of strange. Other than that, this car has actually been pretty fine on the highway, decently comfortable, not the loudest or anything. The sound system's pretty darn good, surprisingly. Let's check the link in the description if you want to see more on that. This JBL 9 speaker, not too bad. But we're gonna get back to the pump, fill it up, and see if this number on the dash is to be believed. 2.978 gallons going in for our final fill. 102.2 divided by 2.978 is giving us 34 miles per gallon. So that's quite a bit better than the car's readout. Kind of wondering if maybe it's a little bit screwy on the fuel fill, but I do think, given the fact EPA is 32, calculated 34, and with the odometer being so weird, I think 33 is probably a pretty safe number. So 33 miles per gallon here in the real world highway fuel economy test for the Corolla Cross. Now, not an awful number, but still, when you consider the size of this thing, and you consider you could get yourself a Camry that it's got essentially as much room. I mean, yeah, you're not going to be able to fit quite as much in the rear hatch, but you got a pretty big size trunk, and you can get 50 miles per gallon with the 2.5-liter in that car and have a more enjoyable car to drive in general, more comfortable, nicer interior. Yeah, it might be a little bit more expensive, but I really think you should consider that. But again, not too terrible in here. Dealing with a 12.4 gallon fuel tank in here, so 12.4 gallons times 33 miles per gallon is getting you an effective highway cruising range of 400 miles here in the new Toyota Corolla Cross. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the Corolla Cross, check the links in the description for our JBL sound system demo and our DM test drive, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.